Okay.
All right. Welcome everybody. As you're coming in, again, please drop your info in the chat. Make sure all the attendees and the panelists can see it. Tell us where you're from, which Toastmasters club you represent. We love to see the diversity. We love to see everybody jump in on this.
It's awesome seeing people from literally all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what that excitement feels like.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, Anna.
We are at 7 o'clock, so let us go ahead and begin. For everybody that is still joining, again, please drop your info in the chat. Tell us where you're from and which Toastmasters club you're representing. To everybody else that's already here, welcome this evening. I'm so glad that all of you can make it. We have a great session in store for all of you. Before I go through all the details of our webinar for today, let me quickly introduce myself and give a bit of gratitude. My name is Anukul Vasudevan. I am a Toastmaster with North Gwinnett Advanced Toastmasters and Johns Creek Toastmasters. I've been a Toastmaster for about 3 years, and let me tell you, Toastmasters has been the best decision I've ever made. And with that, I'd like to offer a little bit of gratitude to our webmaster, our tech master, distinguished Toastmaster Stephen Box. He's going to make sure we are all tidy with our tech this evening, and I'm sure this is going to be wonderful as always. Now, our seminar this evening is going to have quite a few interactive bits, and I'm sure you're all going to have some questions as well. So in this webinar platform, you'll be able to ask questions through the Q&A button, and you'll find that towards the bottom of your screen if you're using a laptop. If you're using a mobile device, you may see it in the More section or somewhere else in that panel. During the presentation, Toastmaster Lana will ask questions and will have you participate. For those responses, please do drop it in the chat. Make sure everybody can see it so we can all be engaged together. And we will go through the responses as they come through. And for everybody's benefit, this webinar is being recorded. And we cannot hear you, but we can interact with you through the chat. So if you have anything that you want to drop into the chat for everybody to see, please do so. Please do so. We love to see audience interaction. And now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce your speaker for the evening. Fellow Toastmasters honored guests, distinguished Toastmaster Lana McFarland joined Toastmasters in 2003 in Alpharetta, Georgia. In her district leadership journey in Toastmasters, Lana found that serving enhanced her skills in her personal and professional life. Lana took her Toastmasters journey a step further, serving as District Director for District 44. With a district leadership team and more than 5,000 Toastmasters members, the district earned distinguished district status for the 2015-2016 term. This was a major accomplishment for all members and clubs, being recognized for their self-development and personal growth. Now serving as past region advisor, she is encouraged by the commitment, support, and dedication of the 8 districts in Region 8, and the value each leadership team brings through serving the clubs and its members. Lana continues to mentor new members and new clubs to empower other Toastmasters' success as future leaders by fostering the same opportunity that was extended to her on her leadership journey. On a personal note, professionally, Lana has worked at Aetna for the past 26 years, mentoring and coaching new employees to the team and leading with development activities. Everything rises and falls on leadership. A quote from John Maxwell. Please help me welcome past Region Advisor, distinguished Toastmaster, Lana McFarlane.
Thank you, Anna Paul, and also thank you, Stephen. Welcome, welcome, welcome this evening, Toastmasters, and if there's any guests who took the time to join us, we're really delighted. I'm delighted and truly appreciate you taking the time this evening to join this and learn to share the experience to become an effective leader. Especially what I'm going to focus on this evening, which for me has been something I'm very comfortable with, a one-on-one setting. Some of you may have one-on-one meetings with your managers at work. I have a one-on-one meeting with my boss every week, and it becomes a platform whereby it's reoccurring and you become comfortable and you learn to trust. And this webinar is going to provide an opportunity to include some ideas. So with that, and the reason I came to understand the value of one-on-one meetings was each time my manager would schedule a meeting, and as Anna Cole mentioned, I've worked at Aetna US Healthcare for 26 years. Our providers, which were pharmacy leaders, would be on a call and my manager would ask, so, any questions? Has anybody on the panel or team been in that situation? And you hear nothing. So we usually take that silence means no questions. Well, the minute I would get back to my desk, my phone would ring off the hook. And all the providers started calling me. Well, I had a question, but I didn't want to ask it on the phone in case I sounded silly. Well, if you have a question, somebody else may have the same question, and they're usually intrigued and interested to find out what was the question and what was the answer, because a lot of times people don't know what they don't know. So the reasoning behind this is with Toastmasters who are also new leaders, we've just gone through enrollment and electing new officers, and I know Toastmasters Leadership Institute meetings are coming up, mine included this Saturday. There's going to be a lot of officers who need a one-on-one coaching or to be amongst their peers. And they also are going to be reluctant to ask a question because they don't want to sound silly or unknowledgeable. How many of us, and I know for me personally, I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything because every day is an opportunity to learn something new. So let's think about the one-on-one meetings and the benefits that comes with that. Next slide, please, Anna. The one-on-one meetings can end up with great results, or, as you can see from the example in the option number 4, they can go completely sideways. So there's a little hand button that's below. How many of you have ever had a one-on-one meeting that went like option number 4? Oh, 2 participants have raised their hand. 5, 7, 8. Wow. Oh my goodness. I would love to be in your meeting when that happens. And that's it can be unexpected, and you hope that it doesn't end up like that. However, even if it doesn't, that you're not throwing things, sometimes in your mind, that's where you become and where you want to not end up. So what I'm going to ask, we're going to take a moment to do a poll. And Stephen's going to post the questions that I'm going to ask you on the poll to just click on. You'll have 30 seconds. So if there's an opportunity for leadership development, in your mind, who should initiate the agenda topic? Are open dialogue effective? Yes or no in a one-on-one meeting? Or is a one-sided conversation, or do you prefer a two-way interaction? So the questions are posed. If you can click on your option and then hit submit, and as I said, oh, okay. So, Stephen, we're going to give them 30 seconds.
And the results are coming in.
Results are pouring in here. All right. So the results from our first poll.
Solana, looks like a majority of our attendees here would like to have effective open dialogue.
Absolutely. And I'm curious in regards to the one-sided conversation versus a two-way interaction. And the reason I'm curious is I would take it that it would depend on who and what the reason for the one-on-one dialogue and meeting is for in the first place. Initiating an agenda topic. I think a lot of times we don't realize when we have the opportunity for a one-on-one, yes, the person who is putting the agenda together, you as the participant can also have that option to ask if you can include a couple more items. So it is more of an open-ended dialogue. Does everybody agree, or was that something that wasn't thought about? That yes, my manager can have a couple of items, but I'm the one in my one-on-one meeting with my manager, I'm the one who puts my agenda items together. So was this something that you were thinking could be, or? And so Sheila has said, depends on if you're the boss. Well, I know I'm not the boss with my manager. However, as I said, I do put the agenda items to prepare for my one-on-one meetings. Again, it also depends on your meeting, whether it's your boss or whether it's in Toastmasters, who the leader is and who's initiating. But definitely you want that it's a two-way, because I see most of you have answered as an effective open dialogue. So have the opportunity that you're giving the other person the opportunity to ask and open questions or come with agenda items to be prepared. Thank you for that. So I'm seeing, yes, you definitely need an agenda. Absolutely. My recommendation is don't ever attend a meeting without an agenda. Regardless the size of how many people are going to be there, even with a one-on-one, you need to have agenda items so that you stay on target and you stay on point of things to be discussed. Anna-Call, Robert had just mentioned something, but I didn't see it stay up in chat.
Yes, so offering an opportunity to add agenda items in the meeting prior to the meeting.
There you go. And that will help the meeting, one, stay on time, go smoothly, and also cover topics that you feel are important on both sides, not just your boss having the one-on-one or you as the individual. So here's a question I want you to submit and answer in chat. When your boss or leader meets with you on a one-on-one, do you find it easier to have the conversation over the phone, because right now we're in virtual, or do you think that a one-on-one meeting via email is productive? So can you type your answer in chat? And Anna-Paul, I know you'll keep an eye on the responses that we're getting back and see how many, which is the most productive.
Absolutely. And again, please do share to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see the answers together and we can collaborate together.
I'm seeing that in chat, the responses that I'm seeing, and thank you so much in regards to putting your questions and answers. And Anacol, I see there's 3 questions in the Q&A that if we can take a look and see what the questions are, if we can answer before we move on to the next slide.
So it looks like the chat has been disabled.
Oh dear. Okay, so there's 7 questions in the Q&A. Oh.
In general, the chat is disabled, so folks who are trying to answer your question are not able to answer.
Which is weird because people are answering in chat, so.
I'm wondering, so I put send type answer so that they can send, so hopefully, and apologies on that, we're not.
To make it a little easier for all of you that have your chat disabled, please raise your hand, and then we can see just a count of how many folks. Oh, numbers are pouring in.
So Michael mentioned that if I'm calling the meeting, I want to first lay out what we're going to talk about. Absolutely. Thank you, Michael, for that comment.
Try your chat now and see if it's working for you.
Deborah says that the phone is more productive. Email is cold. You can hear meaning in the sound of a voice. Absolutely.
There we go. Now we're seeing a lot more come through. I'm seeing a lot of phone. I'm seeing video conference as an unspoken option. Face to face. I like it.
Okay, well, well, now that we're more virtual, you can't walk into somebody's office. Absolutely, face to face. Absolutely, definitely, if that's an option to be able to sit down, because then you can see each other's facial expressions and you can read from each other the responses, whether it's going, and body language. Is the meeting going sideways, as we saw in option number 4, or are we staying on track? So video conferencing is better. I think that more companies obviously now are going more to that route, but if it's not, and you have to do it, and Zoom obviously is another option now that that's become more available, but use all options. If the phone is something that you can have a quick one-on-one, or a meeting or an email where you can lay out and say, just outline your points and your tips and say, can we have a further discussion, so that you can schedule some time on the calendar convenient for both parties to further the discussion, to keep it. Because what you want to do is at all times keep the meeting productive. So utilizing the power of a one-on-one. And we're going to have another poll in regards to utilizing the power. Now that you're all either doing it by email, by phone, virtual. So here's another question, and Stephen's going to put it up. How long do you think a one-on-one meeting should last? 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, or longer if necessary? And again, you'll have 30 seconds to be able to put your responses in. Francine, there's a poll that you should be able to click on, I think.
Got about 10 more seconds to get your answers in.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. On the call, I think we see the majority is half an hour.
Amazing, isn't it? You know, in my head, sometimes I think maybe a longer meeting would be good, just because we can have more time to discuss things. But it looks like the majority of our folks here really really prefer a half-hour conversation.
And that's also dependent. What my recommendation would be, and half an hour, you have to make sure that you're precise, you're on point, and definitely you would need to have an agenda if it's just a 30-minute meeting. But if you extend the meeting invite for an hour, that way, if you don't need the full hour, that's okay. Just because you have 60 minutes doesn't mean you have to use it. If you can accommodate and accomplish everything within the 30 minutes, absolutely. But the one thing you don't want to do, if it's a one-on-one meeting and now you've rushed out of time and you didn't finish the items for discussion, now you have to schedule another time. So just be flexible. I agree that it depending on the circumstances, half an hour is usually good. Most of my work calls, but those are work group calls, are usually 30 minutes, but definitely 1 hour on a one-on-one, depending on how many items you have on your agenda. Schedule, my recommendation, schedule for an hour. If you don't need to use up the entire hour, that's a good thing. Then you have more time back, especially if you don't have that opportunity to have the face-to-face, or you have the virtual, which is always a good thing, because sometimes when you start a meeting, you're not going to get into just going into the agenda. Relax. How are things going? Is your boss going to ask you, how are you? Are you going to ask your boss or whoever's facilitating? Well, how are you? That breaks and makes the meeting more approachable, because that's what you want. You want that part of your one-on-one meeting is you're approachable. That builds trust. So we've seen that most of you feel half an hour is sufficient to have a one-on-one meeting. And the intent of these meetings, whether it's reoccurring and especially if it's reoccurring, is that you want it to be a safe environment to build trust, for it to be a safe environment that you are comfortable and the person you're meeting with is comfortable to be able to share something that perhaps others on a team, they don't need to know about. And the example I'll give you is when I was the district governor, I had a 30-minute meeting with each of my division governors once a month, because sometimes there's things within that particular division, it's not applicable to the other division. But what I did, I started out with the first 5 months to see how were the meetings going. And then I sent a follow-up to ask, are these meetings helpful? Are they productive? Do you want to continue? Because my goal was not to waste their time. My manager always used to say, time is money, time is valuable. So if that helps, again, a one-on-one meeting should be productive. And this is where I'm going to ask on the next, there's going to be the slide that Anakul is showing. I want you to look at those 6 bullet points and put in chat which you feel helps or you think of as creating a safe environment, either 1 or 2. And it doesn't matter which order or which you feel is the primary, whether it's poise, sensitivity, impartiality, tact, good judgment, and good listening skills. Which of those 6 do you feel, just pick 2, which you feel help create a safe environment? And Anakul will take a look and see where we are with most of the responses.
Hey, Lana, while people are putting those in, we did have a question in the chat, and I just want to remind people, please put your questions in the Q&A because they may get overlooked in chat. But Andrew asked, since most of us train for 5 to 7 minute speeches and 1 to 2 minute for table topics, why would we need 30 minutes?
Why would you need 30 minutes for a one-on-one meeting? Is that the question? I just want to make sure that I'm getting clarification. I'm not talking about a one-on-one meeting is going to be more in-depth than a 5 to 7 minute speech. Because you're in your meeting with your manager, your division governor, your area governor, or if you're an officer and a member wants to speak to you, they're not coming with a speech. So hopefully this is where you're going to use good judgment, definitely good listening skills, because part of, and it also depends on who's initiating the meeting. Because you as a member or you as an employee or you, it doesn't have to be the boss. You can initiate a one-on-one meeting at any time. But the goal is to make sure that you feel comfortable that you're going to get the most out of the meeting, and the other person, if it's your manager, that they're taking the time to listen to you. So the question you're asking, if you train for a 5 to 7 minute speech in Toastmasters, we have meetings where, or speeches that 20 to 25 minutes, much longer. That gives you the skills to speak much longer than that. So I'm hoping that I'm not misunderstanding your question in regards to giving you the answer. So my apologies if I'm not responding in the way that you're asking for.
We had a follow-up statement / question in the Q&A from Michael. If you already know what you're going to say, you should be able to get your point across in 15 minutes. So I think maybe that's where the previous comment was going as well. And
Okay.
I think you kind of answered that in just saying that, yes, as Toastmasters, we may be able to get our point across that quickly, but everyone that we come in contact with may not be Toastmasters and they may not have our communication skills.
Exactly. And also, depending on how many items are on the agenda, again, you want to make sure that the issue, the item, the agenda item is being addressed completely. I was on a call today and everybody was all talking all at once, and a couple of times I had to interject to ask what exactly is the question, and if there isn't a question, is the point being addressed? We learn that as Toastmasters, but as Stephen has said, most of the people that you work with, they're not Toastmasters. So therefore, if you are able to be succinct with the point that you're addressing and you can get that handled, addressed, it just depends on the topic, the item, the circumstances, and what the meeting is intended for. Am I seeing more questions, Stephen? Because we may have to move on because I want to make sure that we're staying on point. But are there more
Most
questions?
of them are just people who are, instead of using the chat, they were just typing in the Q&A, so we're good.
Okay.
As far as the chat is concerned, right, so we have a few responses to the answer that you provided, Lana. And to the question that you had asked, a lot of folks rely on sensitivity and good listening skills. So a majority of our attendees today rely on sensitivity and good listening skills.
Excellent. And we hear so many times that people don't really listen. We're multitasking, especially working virtually from home. My daughter said that on her meetings in the groups, they have to have the camera on so that they make sure their manager make sure that they're not multitasking, that they're actually paying attention, because it is easy to be distracted. It's easy to look at your phone, whereas you're on camera, you're on point. If I start looking down, you're looking at me thinking, what is she looking at? What is she, why is she looking somewhere else? So again, and did anybody have impartiality or tact as the response, or it was primarily sensitivity and good listening skills?
There were a couple of attendees with impartiality, and I think I see one. So I see one attendee, Robert Bunn, with impartiality and tact. So we have one there, and we have a few folks that have a mix of the two.
Okay, and what about poise? Did anybody have poise?
I didn't see poise. Why is poise important, Lana?
Well, the reason that was there, and it was interesting when I asked somebody, what did poise mean to them? Poise is important because it helps you to be prepared. Now you imagine that you just received a call, Stephen, you've got a client who, you know, didn't feel that you gave them the good fitness guaranteed lesson that you were supposed to, and now you've asked to have a meeting with them or have a conversation. Well, they're frazzled. So they're not going to be poised. They're not going to be prepared. They're going to want to have a meeting similar to that item in the example number 4 and probably punch your lights out. So being poised helps you breathe, helps you calm down, helps you to be prepared, and maybe even bring in some sensitivity into why didn't they have, and to listen to you as to why they feel that they didn't get the lessons that you promised that you were going to give them. Does that help?
So there's a follow-up to that, and one of our attendees, Linda Means, has asked a question. What is the difference between poise and tact?
Poise is you personally in your appearance. In other words, if I come on the call and I look as though I'm prepared to have a meeting. Tact is making sure that the first thing doesn't just pop out of your mouth that shouldn't. Are you being tactful in, especially if it's a conversation that's not always the most pleasant that you want to have? And sometimes it may be a conversation or a meeting that is not unpleasant, but sometimes we get carried away and we forget where we are, and things can come out of our mouth, or we're impulsive. You don't have poise, and therefore you may not have tact. Poise is Wonder Woman before she acts, and tact. Oh, can you read that one again, Anna? Cool. That was so cool.
Poise is Wonder Woman before she acts. Tact is Batman after he acts. I like that.
Robert, I do too. Thank you, Robert, for sharing that. Very good, very good. Thank you.
And Linda, thank you for your question. That was very helpful. And Lana, thanks for clarifying all of that. I didn't know there's so much into it between poise and tact and sensitivity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now we've got 14 people who've raised their hands, so we just need to double check and make sure that we're able, if possible, to get to, before we get to the next polling question.
I'm not sure why they raised their hands.
Okay.
If you're having any technical issues or anything, if you can type in the chat so we can try to help you.
Okay. So as I don't see, are there any more questions, Anna, before we move on to the next polling question that Stephen's going to display? So what's your preferred leadership style of communicating? Is it email that you hide behind, that somebody can delete? Or is it the phone, leaving a brief message, face-to-face, or virtual as we're in? So can you put your responses and submit?
You know, if you ask teenagers these days, you may have to add an option in there. Snapchat.
Well, very true. We definitely have to accommodate, you know, the younger generation because they're becoming part of our society. I saw a couple of phones in there and only 2 virtual.
But
Well,
the
now we've gone up
majority.
to 3. But the majority of face-to-face, absolutely, absolutely.
And face-to-face is our winner this evening.
There you go. Oh, and Octavia said also texting. I don't know if I want texting in a one-on-one. The call would never end. I'm not very good at texting. I can't text very fast. My daughter laughs at me, but thank you. So the phone hasn't died completely, but one of the things I would remind everybody, and it's in the Toastmaster magazine, about leaving an effective voicemail. That if you're going to leave a voicemail, the voicemail, think of it as a sales pitch that get to the point, make sure that you're concise with your message. If you've got a phone number, be specific, speak slowly, so that way they don't have to listen to the message 4 or 5 times. And the reason that you called, and above all, who are you? A lot of times we'll get on the phone and we've forgotten to say who we are. Now you have to call back. Email hasn't died. And read your emails a couple of times before you send it. Don't ever send. My recommendation is to never send, especially if you're planning to have a meeting with someone, to send it one that you wouldn't want to come back to you, or they say appear in court. And we've seen a few virtual, so that's coming the way of the world. But thank you for each of you participating in the poll. Nina says that email is important to her, especially from leaders. Ah, see, she's a techie. She wants to keep track. So be careful what you put in an email when you send it to Lena. She will be able to come back and haunt you with it. All right, so we're going to go on to the next slide, which is developing your coaching skills. And I know somebody mentioned it helps with coaching, but somebody asked me, well, what is considered coaching and what are the elements that you would consider coaching? So what I'm going to, first is mentoring. And in a couple of the pathways tracks, there is a mentoring project that you have to do. And they specifically mention the difference between coaching and mentoring. So I'm going to ask each of you if you can put it in, would it be easier in chat, Stephen, a one-word response that you would consider as a coaching skill to provide guidance and feedback to your team. One word that you would consider as a coaching skill, if you can put that in chat, and then we'll take a look and see, and we'll compare.
So as all of you are putting your answer into the chat, Lana, there was a question that came through that I think is worth addressing, especially when it comes to emails. Should they all be answered? And if so, what's a recommended time frame for replying back?
Okay, so point of order with email. If the email is addressed specifically just to you, definitely you need to respond. If it's depending on the tone of the email, recommendation is, and and depending also on the urgency, you should think about answering the email within an hour, or at least responding, thank you for your email, let me find out and I'll get back to you. Definitely not more than 24 hours. If it's an email that you need to send and you feel it's going to be one that's not quite in the tone of the intention, write it, walk away, delete it, and then rewrite it before sending. But if it's an email that you get, again, dependent on the issue, the subject, the title, and if it's an email that's addressed specifically to you and someone else, either or should respond back and answer, or dependent on level of leadership. If someone sends myself and my boss an email, I usually wait and defer for her to reply, but if she doesn't, I will make an attempt to respond. If you're CC'd in the email, that means you've been copied, not necessarily for you to jump on the email and respond back, because it may not be the correct answer. You are being informed and copied versus the email being addressed to you. Does that help?
Yes, immensely. And I think that provides a lot of guidance to us on the calls, because this can be a gray area sometimes especially if you're busy, I think it's a good strategy to say, I will find out, or I will get back to you soon, just to not to leave you hanging.
Yeah, because most people, just like you, they're sending you an email that they will consider urgent. Not necessarily it might be urgent to you or your business or what you've got on your plate, but at least acknowledge the email and say, thank you, let me get back to you, let me find out, and I'll respond back to you, and if possible, by a specific time. So how are we doing on a call with the words that are coming in? Because we're going to show the next slide so that we can compare what was put in chat versus what has been provided as possible coaching skills.
So we've got some great answers coming in. We've got some great answers. We've got guidance, accountability, support, motivation. We've got patience. Oh, very important things to be a coach, honestly.
Okay.
I remember I had an impatient coach once, and that did not go well.
So how did we do? Do we want to compare with the next slide and see what we got? Or I know that they're probably still coming in.
Let's do that. Let's see what we've got.
Okay. All right. So this is some of the responses that we have of words that a mentor is there. But coaching, if you think about it, one of the examples that Pathways presents, coaching versus mentoring. Coaching is more of a right now suggestion, right now action, right now something. In other words, the example given is a gentleman who is giving a speech. His example is he has bad eye contact. Now mine would be, where am I looking? I have a tendency to look and think I'm looking at the side. You, on a call, as my coach, would probably suggest, here's what I would suggest. Have a little smiley face at that little button that is on your laptop so that way you're more focused, because now, even though I'm not looking at you, but I am looking at you. If I look anywhere else, now my eyes have gone somewhere else, and you can see that I'm not looking at you. So that would be an immediate coaching skill to bring success, that I'm presenting more effectively, that I sound knowledgeable. So are any of the words that are on here in providing guidance, to teach, be supportive? I'm sure that there are other words that are on there, show their skills, what are you knowledgeable about, and bringing experience.
Mm-hmm. We've had a variety of examples, a variety of answers. I see modeling, which I think is very interesting response. If you do have a good coach, at least in my opinion, and you see an effective coach and how they work, you can become one yourself by mirroring, aka modeling those behaviors. Is that right?
Yes. Okay, I see your hand raised. Did you have it? Your sound is going in and out a little bit, Nicole.
Okay, I hope it stabilizes.
Okay, you're good now. So role model with role play, that's a good way to demonstrate. And as you said, if you have somebody who's a good role model, especially when you're thinking about becoming a leader, especially starting out as a club leader, a club officer, if you have somebody who is a good example, you're more liable to say, yeah, let me give it a try. You'll go outside of your comfort zone to take on that. And for me personally, the person who was my region advisor when I became the club growth director, Eileen Wolf, she was an example of her coaching skills that led me to want to take on this leadership role this past year as region advisor. So as you said, Nicole, if you have a good example, absolutely, that enforces you to want to develop your coaching skills. Mentoring is more long-term in regards to let's get through a few speeches. We know in the traditional competent leader where one of the projects was to mentor either new member, and we overlooked mentoring an existing member. And I did mentor an existing member who got stuck, had done several speeches and then just hit a roadblock. So it was me working with him, mentoring him to get him back on track to finish his advanced level of his speeches. And that was interesting, and doing that with somebody who was a seasoned Toastmaster versus a brand new member. So that's something to consider when we're mentoring versus coaching. Coaching, you know, let's get you on to doing your speeches and guiding them. Let's see what we can do. Let's overcome your anxiety and let's get you started. After all, a coach in any type of sport gives them guidance of, okay, this is what we did. How are we going to correct it? What are we going to do?
So would you say, oh, sorry to cut you there. Would you say there's a line between where mentoring ends and where coaching begins? That's one of the questions we have in our Q&A.
It can develop into both. You can start out as a coach with somebody, a member or a co-worker, in regards to if it's something that they need the skill and they're asking for, I won't say a quick fix, but something that's going to help them now in order to develop to prepare for their next project or their next speech or their next, because I'm a project manager, so I'm usually having to work with subject matter experts. But what I learn from the people who I work with, which will help me to mentor which I've done, a new member who's come on our staff and our team at work for the things that I was coached to learn, I can now mentor someone else. So it sort of leads from one to the other. And that's why they've got both in that mentoring program, but also as a protege, you starting as a new person under a mentor, what are you learning and what is your mentor learning from you? And definitely, obviously, listening skills is one of them. So here's a couple of things that we can think about in regards to engaging and doing your one-on-one leadership meetings. We talked about definitely having an agenda and discussion that the items can come from both parties. Listening skills is so important, and one of the things that I was informed that a lot of people, Carnegie actually said that a lot of people listen to respond versus listening to understand. So if you're listening only because you want to interrupt and say something, then think about it, you're not really listening. And I used to do that to my boss. He'd say, let's talk this through, another former boss that I had. And as he was thinking, and I jump in, he said, let me finish. And the reason for that was sometimes you're thinking out loud in your head, and if you get interrupted, have you ever had that situation where you thought of something and the thought just left your head and you can't remember? So when you've asked a question, stop and pause, unless it's a rhetorical question that you really don't want the answer to, or are you asking a question because you value the response that you're going to get back? So we definitely, even though we talk about listening skills being important in Toastmasters, where we listen, yes, to the interjections and the grammarian, are we using words that are effective? But it also gives an opportunity for either you or the other person to ask questions. And also providing a purpose. Why are we meeting? Years ago, we'd have a meeting for a meeting. What was the purpose of the meeting? Because again, most of you have said 30 minutes you feel is adequate time for a one-on-one. So within that time, you want to make sure that you have the purpose of the meeting and it's productive. And above all, to make sure that the meeting is agreed upon conclusion, that if there are open items, if you've had a call and there's anything else further to discuss, that You make meeting notes so that if there's follow-up, that you do follow up and you commit to that follow-up. So I just want to ask, and I appreciate and thank all of you for interjecting with additional questions in between, because that was definitely something that I didn't want to wait until the end, because a lot of times you hear something and all of a sudden, I want to. So no, this was definitely, I appreciate you asking the questions in between, because that spurred on answers or suggestions or ideas from others who are on this call who didn't get an opportunity to be able to say out loud. So I hope that this was helpful for you, definitely helpful for me, and I appreciate again that you taking the time to be on this call for this hour to share your thoughts and ideas. Anako, anything, any parting things as our MC?
Well, I'd like to thank everyone, as you did, Toastmaster Lana, for everyone being here. With technology, as you can see, we are definitely trying to adapt and work with it, but I think that this session went tremendously well. And Lana, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening to give us the secret weapons of effective leadership and showing us what it means to have a true one-on-one conversation. I just want to say as a small little parting story, when you and I had gone through this earlier last week, funny thing is, I ended up having a crucial conversation with some folks, and I remember your presentation. I'm like, how do I make a safe environment, and how do I come through in having this effective one-on-one conversation? And lo and behold, you had given me all the tools I needed to make that happen, to do it effectively. So thank you, Lana, and I hope that everyone else who's listening got tremendous value out of it. And I really hope that we can hear from all of you soon.
And thank you. And just as an FYI, I have asked District 44 leadership. They have been kind enough to post this, the PowerPoint on our district website under resources, that you are welcome to use it and have as your secret weapon to have an effective one-on-one, because as you see, one-on-ones we usually think, oh Lord, it's not going to be pleasant. If somebody says, can you come into my office, you're thinking, oh God, what did I do now? So, but that's not always the case. It can be a very pleasant meeting, especially if it's something that, yes, you may get a bonus, which is nice, or it may be a shift or a proposal for you to think about a promotion that you hadn't thought of. And again, this is where you have the opportunity to build trust, be comfortable, and utilize that one-on-one meeting. And I hope that it gives you more value than just a 5 to 7 minute speech, but great that if you are able to do that and include that, absolutely. Stephen, thank you also for being our tech guy, keeping us on track. Much appreciated. And to all of you who have joined us from all parts, I saw everybody who has joined this evening, much appreciated. And it was a pleasure and a privilege to have been able to present this to you this evening. I believe that there will be a survey going out, but you are welcome to send your remarks, but definitely go on District 44 website, go under resources, and you'll be able to find this PowerPoint that you can use or share with others to use as your secret weapon. So thank you, everyone.
And I think you may have answered this question already, but I just want to clarify. The slide deck, was that being emailed out, or was that being posted on the D44 website?
No, it's going to be posted on D44 website under resources. Our Madam PQD, Roxanne Rush, is going to post it to make sure that it's available. So anybody who would like to have a copy of it, you will be able to retrieve it and use it for your own purposes.
Fantastic. So I hope that was helpful for those who asked the question. And what about for those who are in a different district? They can just go to the District 44 page anyway, correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And those of you who joined from other districts, thank you so much. Time difference considering, we really appreciate you taking your time to join us. Now with virtual, at least you've had an opportunity to tour the world, be on calls at a time that is either unreasonable, but you took the time out of your day to join us, and we appreciate that. We don't take your time lightly. So with that, I want to make sure, unless there's any other questions, and much appreciated to all of you, and saying thank you, everyone. Gerald, who just said thank you, appreciate to all of you.
And the webinar recording, as I'm looking in the Q&A, will also be posted on the D44 Toastmasters website in the upcoming few days.
It will. It will. So if any of you just want to go back and I believe chat will be available for any of the questions and responses that were posted, especially for the remarks that were included, the one word for coaching. I believe you should be able to see those in there too. So with that,
that's a wrap.
I will say our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Great job. Thank you, Andre.
Have a phenomenal evening, everybody.
Have a great one.
Yes.
Or even a great day for those who are in a different time zone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And good night if anybody joined us at night. Yes, so take care.